Ah, there it is. That dreaded little orange light glowing on your dashboard. You know, the one that immediately makes your stomach sink. Is this going to be a cheap fix or is it a total nightmare? Well, if you're here, we're going to figure it out together, because today we are tackling one of the most common reasons that light ever comes on.
So you did the right thing. You plugged in an OBD2 scanner and this is what it told you. P0307, cylinder 7 misfire detected. If that's the code you're staring at right now, trust me, you are in exactly the right place.
All right, let's dive in. We are going to decode this P0307 code step by step. Think of this as your personal guide to finding the problem and actually fixing it yourself, hopefully saving you a bunch of money and a trip to the shop.
But before we start pulling things apart, we've got to understand what's actually going wrong inside your engine. So, what in the world is an engine misfire anyway? Okay, so your engine is basically just a series of thousands of tiny, perfectly timed explosions every minute. For each explosion, you need three things to show up to the party at the exact right time: air, fuel, and a spark. A misfire is just what happens when one of those three things doesn't do its job right in a specific cylinder. In our case, cylinder number 7. And that's the hiccup or the shudder you feel when you're driving.
Now, your car is actually giving you a massive clue right here. And believe it or not, a P0307 code is kind of good news. It's pointing to a local problem. Something is wrong specifically with cylinder 7. If you had a P0300 code, that would be a whole different story. That's a random misfire, meaning it could be anything affecting the whole engine. But with P0307, we know exactly where to look. So if the problem is stuck in one spot, we can basically treat this like a crime scene investigation. It's time to round up the usual suspects, and we're going to start with the most likely culprit.
9 times out of 10, maybe even more, the problem is going to be with the ignition system. We're talking about a bad ignition coil, a tired old spark plug, or a cracked spark plug wire or boot. These three are the ones responsible for making the spark, and they are by far the most common things to fail. This is where our investigation begins.
Now, of course, if it's not the ignition system, there are other possibilities. You could have a clogged fuel injector that isn't spraying gas correctly, or even something more serious, like low compression inside the engine. But look, we always start with the easy, cheap, and common stuff first. We don't worry about these other guys unless we have to.
So how do we prove which one of our suspects is guilty without just throwing new parts at the problem and hoping for the best? Well, we use a simple, absolutely brilliant diagnostic trick that costs you $0 in just a few minutes of your time.
It's called the swap test, and it is your new best friend. First, you'll probably need to do a quick search online for an engine diagram to find exactly where cylinder 7 is. Once you've got it, just swap its ignition coil with the one from a cylinder right next to it, like cylinder 5. Then grab your scanner, clear the codes, start the engine, let it idle for a minute, and then scan for codes again.
And right here, this is the moment of truth. After you run the test and rescanned, the answer to this one simple question tells you everything you need to know. This is the beauty of it. If your scanner now says P0305, the misfire moved to the cylinder you swapped the coil to, then bingo, case closed. You have a bad ignition coil. But if the code is still P0307, well, that tells you the coil is perfectly fine and the problem is something else still hanging out at cylinder 7. All right, so for all of you whose P0307 code stubbornly stayed put, don't worry. Our investigation is not over. We just proved our number one suspect is innocent, and now we can move down the list.
The logic from here is exactly the same. The next easiest part to check is the spark plug. Do the exact same swap test, just with the spark plug this time. If the code still doesn't move, your next suspect is the fuel injector. You can listen to it with a long screwdriver to see if you hear a nice steady click, click, click. If all of that checks out, then and only then would you move on to a compression test to check for deeper engine issues.
So once your amazing detective work has finally revealed the true culprit, whether it was the coil, the plug, or maybe the injector, it's time to close the case and make the fix. This is the satisfying part. Just go ahead and replace that single part you proved was bad. Once the new part is in, clear the codes one last time, and then, most importantly, take your car for a good test drive. Make sure that shudder is gone, the power feels right, and that beautiful, clear dashboard stays that way. And there you have it. You took a mysterious warning light, used logic, you diagnosed the exact problem, and you fixed it. You didn't just save some cash, you gained knowledge, you gained confidence. So really, the only question left is, what are you going to fix next?